what Saylor is doing is a very Bitcoin maximalist approach. And he is going into every pool of capital he can find, and he is creating a product for that pool of capital that fits their investment thesis, that fits their ethos. And then he is using that product to gain more exposure to Bitcoin himself. Every single pool of capital you can find, you should be creating the Bitcoin instrument that allows that pool of capital to go unlock more demand for Bitcoin. And it's something that, like, right now everyone is enjoying dancing on the graves, right? Everyone's like, ha ha ha, look at all these treasury companies, look at how they failed. I think that's a very myopic and short-term thinking approach. I think what you're actually watching is the orange pilling of the global capital markets. And that is a necessary and important step along the path to hyper-Bitcoinization.
Bitcoin is a currency on the internet.
If you don't trust any other currency, this is where you go.
It's going to outperform everything.
Bitcoin could eventually be worthless.
Every day is a good day to buy Bitcoin.
Bitcoin reached its highest price to date.
Bitcoin hitting a new high. It really has reached escape velocity.
There is no second best.
Who cares about Bitcoin?
It's the only secure database that's ever been invented.
Antisocial.
Bitcoin is the real deal.
Stupid.
Everything is bullish for Bitcoin.
Immoral.
It's going up forever, Laura.
Fix the money, fix the world.
Wyatt is a registered investment advisor, and the opinions expressed on the show are their own and do not reflect the opinions of the Silicon LLC. Joining us as a CPA, and the opinions expressed on the show are their own and do not reflect the opinions of Trusted CPA or other affiliated firms. Information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities, investments, or investment strategies. Investments involve risk and unless otherwise stated are not guaranteed. Information expressed does not take into account your specific situation or objectives and is not intended as a recommendation appropriate for any individual. Listeners are encouraged to seek advice from a qualified tax, legal, or investment advisor to determine whether any information presented may be suitable for their specific situation. Past performance is not indicative of future performance. Any statements or opinions are subject to change without notice.
Welcome to Bitcoin for Financial Services Media, the podcast where sound money meets professional services. We explore how to build the financial services industry within the principles, values, and ethos of Bitcoin. Today we're joined by special guest, Brandon Green, CEO of Bitcoin Inc., for a great conversation. Let's get started. Welcome back to Bitcoin for Financial Services podcast. We're honored to have Brandon Green, CEO of Bitcoin Inc. How are you doing, Brandon?
I'm doing fantastic. It's a beautiful morning. The birds are chirping, the sun is shining. So, and it's a great day for Bitcoin. So we'll jump into it. I'm excited to see you guys.
How about it? Great day for Bitcoin. We're gearing up for Vegas here. Jordan and I will both be going. We're a little less than a month out, almost a month on the nose. How crazy is your life right now?
I mean, the last 30-day sprint into the conference is always a complete chaos fest. I mean, there's just, that's putting it lightly. And so, we're in the middle of it, but it's going really well. And, there's a couple of announcements that we've just made that are fun. And then we have a couple more up our sleeve that we haven't made yet that will hopefully make some headlines. So yeah, I'm ready to put on the show. Most of the elements of the show are kind of in place, and I think it's going to be a good one. And, dude, the thing about the bear market events, right? Because, we count this one as a bear market event. It's crazy to say that at, $65,000 Bitcoin prices that, we're in a bear market, but we are. And so what that means is the conversation's a little more focused. Some of the tourists are kind of, staying home this year, and it's more about the builders, the executives, like the people who are really impactful to the space, coming to kind of, we like to say pick up the pieces. There's not many pieces to pick up for this bear market, at least yet. And so it's more about really just talking through what went wrong, what went right, how do we continue to build this space, how do we continue to build Bitcoin into the global financial system.
Yeah, it's a really, our audience is, I think, newer to the space. And so I'm curious, for anyone that doesn't know you well, doesn't know probably David Bailey very well, maybe give us your background, how you met Dave, and like how did you get into BTC Inc., Bitcoin Magazine? I think that'd be interesting for our audience to understand.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been working in the space now for 8 years, and I started as an intern. at BTC Inc. My first job was organizing the storage closet, and because we had a whole bunch of old magazines. And so I did that, and I did it pretty okay, for an intern. It was acceptable job. My second thing I did as an intern was I wrote for Bitcoin Magazine for Aaron Van Werdum, who was our technical editor, about how Bitmain was opposing SegWit, which was a protocol upgrade in 2017. That was a big fork, massive block size war. If you don't know about it, go read about it. It's fascinating time. And Bitmain was opposing it, and no one was really sure why, except that there was a thought that they were using a covert ASIC boost at the time to basically get 15% more efficiency out of their Antminers than you could kind of see in the actual hash rate, and that a sort of particularity in SegWit would kind of remove that ability of their miners. And so they were blocking it solely for allegedly they were blocking it solely for the reason that they didn't want to lose sort of that free 15% efficiency gain of all their miners. And Aaron needed someone to write that story. So that was my second job at Bitcoin, was trying to write that story. And at the time I knew nothing about Bitcoin. And so, you can imagine someone who starts at zero and then has to be able to articulate that like level of depth of the entire situation of Bitcoin. It was a fast learning on the job, basically. And so from there, I dove head first. I've done everything at BTC Inc. Literally every job, including like sweeping the floors, taking out the trash, to now CEO. So and everything in between. So it's been a wild ride, and yeah, I'm really excited about kind of the future that we have, and the company that we have. I mean, it's a fantastic organization.
It really is, and you should be very proud, top notch org. And I love stories like that. Literally starting from the bottom, moving up to the top, and then to your point on bear markets too. That I don't know. There's some kind of a little romantic or endearing about Bitcoiners and in bear markets. Everybody really kind of like hunkers down, gets back to basics, what's most important. So I'm looking forward to Vegas. I got into Bitcoin in a bear market, so it's got a little soft spot for me.
If you're a financial professional working with Bitcoin, you know the pain of messy CSVs, broken cost basis, and accounting tools that were never built for this asset. Bitmint fixes that. Bitmint is the Bitcoin native accounting platform built for CPAs, bookkeepers, advisors, miners, and serious Bitcoin investors. You get clean Bitcoin bank statements, reliable cost basis tracking, full reporting, and fiat integration through Plaid. No crypto talk, no workarounds, just proper accounting for the hardest money on earth. Create a free account or book a demo at bitmint.co today.
Best time to get in. Getting in the bull market sucks.
Yeah,
You get into the bull market, and then the bottom falls out, and then you're like, why am I here? It's way better to get in the bear market. I'll also say, in the bull market, there's so much stuff going on. I mean, everyone is sort of sprinting on whatever it is they think they're going to accomplish this cycle, and it's real. Like, there's kind of just this veil or kind of, I don't know, curtain that people put up in front of them. You can't really just relax and have a conversation. Everyone's trying to get something done. And in the bear market, everyone's more focused on building. They're less focused on some external thing, right? This appearance of, oh, we're growing and everything's crazy and all this kind of stuff. And you get to just have authentic conversations. This is where you get to really make the friends, make the relationships, understand what's going on, understand the pain points, the opportunities. This is like true signal. So I am super excited about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very good American story right there, right? And I feel like those stories don't pop up near as much, where someone is able to rise to the top level of an organization, and starting from sweeping floors, writing articles. And one other thing I want to mention is just, at least the Bitcoin community is very forgiving. So when you wrote that article, I'm sure it didn't get any blowback or any criticism. So that's good too. So
well, hey, all of
why?
the Bitcoiners loved that article, and it was the Bitcoin Cash people that hated it, and they all forked off. So
There you go. They're
it
gone.
worked out.
Okay. Well, Wyatt and I did our first, we did our first event, very small scale. There's 150 advisors in Denver last October. And man, I think Wyatt and I we have to tip our hats to you all just because putting on events, even small scale, I can't even really imagine at a large scale it's a difficult thing. There's so many moving pieces, the parties that you're trying to keep everyone happy, whether it's the sponsors, the attendees, coordinating with the speakers who, some are more responsive and stick to deadlines that you set and all those things than others. So hats off to you for that. How are you feeling just about Vegas? Are you, I know obviously you're doing the second year in a row there. Is that you still feel like that is the spot for, for having this conference? I know it's hard to pick a venue and a city, but just curious on your thoughts on Vegas in general, since this is the second year going into it.
Great question. So, and so to back up too, right? Throwing events is really hard. There's like almost no barrier to entry. But then to do it well is like it's just a massive headache. The good news on it is that if you screw up, which every year we find new ways to screw up, we learn from them. We never make the same mistake twice, but we always make mistakes along the way. The good news about it is that like the worst outcome is, like the event had a problem. It's not like, there's no fire. You didn't burn the building down. It's like, this booth didn't come out right, or that person's stage time had a conflict. It's like it's trivial in terms of sort of the magnitude of the mistakes you can make, but the number of mistakes you can make is like exponential to the number of parties involved and the number of moving pieces you have and how they all have to come together. So it is a massive puzzle. And then, you also have to, I tell the team all the time, throwing an event is like throwing a party. The way that you throw a successful party is you have to get the right people there. And then you have to let the other people know, hey, so-and-so is going to be there. You better come. And it's this snowball effect of trying to really spread the word. You can market the heck out of it as much as you want on socials, on, paid ads, all this kind of stuff, but it really grows word of mouth. And so it's really all about getting the right people excited, the right people involved, and kind of checking the proverbial box that this is going to be a good event and it's worth your time to show up. So that is a impossible nut to crack every year. You never know exactly what the thing is going to be that convinces people to come. And then you're always kind of like sitting waiting to see who's actually going to show up when you open the doors. So it's like a massive roller coaster you end up going on. But alongside that is just the unbelievable payoff you get when you kind of feel it all come together and it's a good event and people give you the positive feedback and all of that. So it's it's like a drip you hook yourself up to and you can't get off of it once you get a hit of it. So but to your question of what was the question exactly, like what are we looking forward
just
to
like
on Vegas
because maybe give everyone the background. It was like California, then it was Miami, there's a Nashville year, and then 2 Vegas years. I was just curious overall how all of those stack up against each other in Vegas, I guess. So you guys settled on.
It's a really good question. We moved it around quite a bit for various reasons. We started in California. We left California because of COVID. In 2021, we weren't allowed to. It was 2020 first. We weren't allowed to throw the event there. It was our second event ever. Right, was 2020, March of 2020. So we had to cancel it. There's crazy stories about that. We could talk hours about it, but I'll give you the cliff notes, which is we had to cancel it. We moved it to LA for like the back half of the year, expecting, this pandemic thing's gonna like blow over pretty quickly. Obviously, it didn't. LA refused to even talk to us about when we could potentially throw the conference. And so then we were like, we gotta host this thing. At that point, it was kind of clear that the risk profile of COVID was very uneven. You know, some people had high risk, a lot of people had low risk. People had been locked up for a year, like they were just fiending to be able to go be together in person again. So at the same time, Mayor Suarez of Miami had like been going viral for this whole like, how can I help, kind of thing
Yes.
on Twitter. And so I DM'd him from the conference Twitter, and I was just like, "Hey, we're trying to throw this conference. Like, can you help us do it in Miami?" And he was like, "Absolutely. Like, let's do it." We were like, "Can we do it in June?" And he was like, "Yeah, we can do it in June." And we were like, "Can you promise us we can do it in June?" He was like, "Of course." We were like, "Okay, we're moving to Miami," and that was that. And like that opened this chapter where Bitcoin 21 was the first event in the world after COVID. And the reason it was because Bitcoiners, first of all, are just a little bit crazier than everyone else, and love Bitcoin and are just willing to, risk it to go, learn about Bitcoin and celebrate Bitcoin. Um, but two, like because we were the first event in the world, it became an absolute mania, like media fest. We had every hit piece written about us, the super spreader event, all this kind of stuff. Like it was crazy. That event we had Bukele announced legal tender. It was Michael Saylor's first public appearance. We called into Ross from
No kidding.
jail. Yeah, I mean, it was just nuts. Floyd Mayweather showed up, Tim Dillon, it was this crazy moment in time. Um, and so then we parlayed that to Miami in 2022, and I'm going somewhere with all this. So, like our thought in 2022 was like, okay, we're the Bitcoin conference. We are like, we need to leverage Bitcoin in order to make the city that we go to as pro Bitcoin as possible, because this worked in Miami. Like as we were in Miami, as we were creating the Schelling point around Bitcoin in Miami, the city of Miami started to like do things for Bitcoin, and the mayor was like doing things for Bitcoin in order to signal along with kind of the whole thing. And we were like, okay, that's a power that we have. Let's try and wield that. So then we start planning to move the conference to Nashville. And so we go to Nashville in 2024. 2023 was a bear market conference. 2024 moved to Nashville, massive event, a huge buy-in from the state, from Nashville itself. Obviously, Trump was there and did his famous speech. And we were like, all right, let's keep this going. And 2025 is going to be massive, and just in terms of size and scale and scope. There's only one place in the world you can go to throw just a huge event like that, and it's Vegas. If we wanted this to be a 100,000 person event, you can only do that in Vegas, right? So we moved to Vegas in 25. It's a massive event. I think like 35,000 people, but the costs are like extreme. You have to sign up for all sorts of, things around it where it's like, your margins just get eaten into over and over and over again. And so it's a very expensive place to throw a conference. And we were like, okay, we'll do it for 25. We'll do it for 26. And then afterwards, it's going to be a bear market. So let's go to a different city where the costs are lower up front, so that we can, kind of toggle the costs on our end and make sure like, we can pay everyone's salaries at the end of the day after the conference, right? Expecting there to be just a drawdown in size, a drawdown in a sponsorship. And so we haven't announced where we're going yet. We'll be announcing that, I think, at the conference, of course. And then, I will say that in the broad scheme of things, I miss Miami. So, it's just fun there. People have a great time. And I think we just have an opportunity to maybe in the future make a home there. I'm not saying that we will, but I'm saying that that is kind of where our heads are at, is like, okay, we've done this road show. It's tough. It's tough, man. You have to like reinvent so many wheels every time you move venues. And then it takes away from your ability to like level up. It's because you got to figure out the floor plan, you got to figure out where the stages are, you got to figure out registration, like all of these things. You can't then spend your time doing like the extra, and here's how we're going to implement Bitcoin in some fun new way, or build some bespoke new activation like all of those things that we want to be doing because we're so focused on just like making the event work for the new space that we're in. So that being said, like I think we will settle down in terms of our moving the conference everywhere all the time. We're not there yet, but it's coming. It's coming.
No, that's awesome, man. And a couple things on that. So when you're talking about like curating the right folks and getting, good people together, was that a little teaser that, Elon's actually going to show up here in 2026?
We'll see about that. But you know what else? He's posting his memes again, isn't he? He's posting his Bitcoin memes. There's a funny story about 2024. So like Elon was supposed to speak at 2024, right? And like the whole kind of deal was like we weren't going to announce him. We were going to let him announce it. And so, we were just kind of like waiting for Elon to announce this thing. And then he tweets laser eyes. And we're like, okay, this like I guess this is it, And so then David posts underneath that laser eyes tweet like, "Are you ready?" in all caps. And then Elon not blocks David. Elon suspends David's Twitter account. And this is like the week of our conference. Suspends his Twitter account, and then like we don't hear from him again at all. And then like we have no clue whether he's still coming. Like he's Elon, right? He's off doing his own thing. He's flying around. I think he went to like Paris for the Olympics. But we're tracking him, like we're tracking his private plane as he's like moving around, and he leaves the Paris Olympics like with enough time to just be in Nashville for his session, right? And we're like, is this still happening? Like we don't know. He lands in New Jersey and he's like kind of, I'm guessing, refueling the plane, and he's there for a second. And we're like, okay, maybe he's maybe he's just not coming, right? And then he takes off, headed directly for Nashville. And we're like, oh my God, he's coming, and like meanwhile, the Secret Service, like we're dealing with them. Like Trump's in the building, he's, doing roundtables and taking pictures and, meeting donors and all this kind of stuff. And we're like, oh my God, Elon's coming, he's gonna land in like 2 hours. And so like we're losing our minds backstage. Trump goes up on stage. As Trump is giving his speech, we watch Elon's plane fly directly over Nashville, turn, and then go straight to Memphis. And he landed in Memphis for his his super AI kind of cluster out there. And I think he flew over the event just to troll us. Like, no joke. I actually think that's what he did. To this day, I think that's what he did. So, fair play, Elon. Well done. We'd love to see you again. And whether we'll see him in B26, we'll find out.
That's awesome. He definitely listens to the pod, so hopefully he'll take the message personally, and on the on the locations here. So this is a comment than a question, but you guys probably already have 27 locked down. I'm assuming those are things you got to be working on well in advance. I still think you guys need to come to Denver and just crush ETH, take their capital, plant the flag, demoralize them. Just keep that in the back of your mind. Little PR play there. But you guys have also moved internationally. Is it 4 total conferences globally?
Yeah,
4 or 5?
We have
4?
4 events on 4 continents in 4 quarters. So we have
wild.
Yeah.
So how have you thought about expanding to those international markets? Are those like, are you going through like the same, horse and pony show? It's like, are we going to this city or that city? Or are you kind of just like all the extra logistics that come with an international show? Or are you just kind of settled where you're at?
We're definitely settled where we're at for those, for a lot of reasons. I mean, first of all, it's because like if you're going to move to a different place, you're probably moving to a different country. And that also comes with a lot of challenges. I mean, it's so hard doing these international events. So the first one we did was in Amsterdam. We did it in Amsterdam for a lot of reasons. We had a good partner there. It's also where I think it was the second ever Bitcoin conference in like 2014 was in Amsterdam. And so it was kind of like a, love note back to the OG days of, 100-person Bitcoin conferences, and so that event went really well, and then we were like, okay, the bull market's coming. This was like 2023. Let's go ahead and place some bets of where else we think we could do like a massive conference when the bull market hits. And so obviously like Asia was a big market, and we were like, how do we kind of hit that? Well, we wanted to be as close to China as possible because that's where all the Bitcoin miners are. And so Hong Kong was a natural fit. We could kind of, lure them through, uh, through the trains and the light rail and stuff. Like they would come, and that was actually really cool. I mean, there was a ton of just OG Chinese Bitcoiners that showed up to that event that people hadn't heard from or talked to in a decade, right? And then the other market that we took a bet on was just the Middle East, because there's a whole narrative and a story of not only just gold there, but of also just a open and free, highly capitalistic financial system. And so like Bitcoin is sort of a natural fit for that market as well. And we threw our event in Abu Dhabi because that's like the seat of power of the UAE. It's very open for business. It's not Dubai. It's a little less crypto-y. It's much more kind of sound money, sound economics. So those are where our events are today. And yeah, I mean, they've all grown pretty well over the past couple of years.
Yeah, I was jealous of Wyatt last year. Got to go to Amsterdam and Mina. So, yeah,
great events.
It's on my list definitely to get out to Amsterdam, and I mean, I would love to go to Abu Dhabi as well at some point.
Your wealth deserves intention. Basilic Financial is a Bitcoin-focused wealth management firm built to help our clients find balance between money and meaning. We integrate sound money strategies across 4 distinct personalized services: financial planning, individual wealth management, retirement services for SMBs, and Bitcoin financial services. Your prosperity, your purpose, intentionally guided at Basilic Financial. Visit our website at basilic.io to schedule a free consultation.
So and when we were talking right before we went on, you guys kind of control a lot of narratives, right? I mean, you're a media company, you throw these in real life events. And I'm just curious, for our audience, obviously in January 24, I guess, was when the ETFs launched. And now there's a lot of institutional, players getting into the game. Just curious to hear your thoughts. There's just been a huge shift, I feel like, in the space between kind of OG folks who are individuals, built businesses, but now you're having to also contend with the Saylors, the Bitcoin treasury companies, the ETF companies. How are you all trying to balance all of those different, I don't know if you call them competing interests, but they're definitely different. They all have different incentives, I guess.
Yeah, so great question. And man, there's like a couple of pieces I would want to pick apart on this. So first of all, we don't control the narratives. We really try and lean in and understand the narratives, and then we try to kind of put a megaphone on them. But understanding the narratives is the hardest part, because what you're really trying to do is you're trying to put words to just like phenomena, and like put reasons behind them, and kind of create the understanding that people can be like, okay, I get what's going on, right? And that's really hard because sometimes it's just like chaos. It's trying to figure out the narrative through just a bunch of data points that don't seem to connect. Here's what I would say on, like, let's say since 2024, since the ETFs, there's been, I think, a confluence of new users in Bitcoin. And what does that mean? So, gosh, let's take the institutions for a start, right? Everyone was saying for years institutions were coming. They were just waiting on that product they could use. I actually don't think the institutions are here yet. And here's why. What happened with the ETFs is that the institutions now had the ability to sort of interact with Bitcoin within their brokerage accounts without ever touching main chain, without having to worry about custody, all this kind of stuff. But they weren't quote unquote orange pilled. They didn't start to fundamentally understand, like, why is Bitcoin amazing? Why is it superior money? Why should I be holding on to this? They weren't net long Bitcoin. What they did is the carry trade. They basically said, look at all this futures market. The miners need the futures market in order to stabilize kind of their coins that they're mining and, stabilize their revenues. Other people are playing the futures market to just speculate without having to, settle into Bitcoin and get massive leverage, all this kind of stuff. There was like a 3% premium they could capture in the carry trade, hold ETF, and then short the equivalent in the futures market, collect the premium when it expires, rinse and repeat over and over again. And so the ETFs grew a bunch because of that trade. The futures markets volume grew a bunch because of that trade. And then outside of that, like, there was a little bit of retail buying in the ETFs for sure. But there was also a lot of people who had held on to their keys for so long, were terrified of $5 wrench attacks, and either just wrapped their Bitcoin into the ETF directly, once the like kind exchange kind of came out, or they just sold their Bitcoin and rebought the ETF. And so there wasn't a ton, in my opinion, of net new buying. Of course, there was some. Of course, it allowed like advisors to sort of tell people, oh, get your 1%, 2% allocation. Like, all of that happened a little bit. But in terms of true institutional adoption, all they really found was a spread trade that opened up. It's hedge funds. They hedge. They don't believe in things. They just find scalp trades that are low risk. And so throughout this whole process, like, I don't think we've actually seen authentic institutional adoption. I don't see Morgan Stanley coming out with their, like, Bitcoin is the future, kind of mentality. You've seen Larry Fink do that, but probably mostly in service to his ETF and just growing demand for that. And so I just don't see it yet. Now, we could kind of speculate on what it will take to see that. And there's a million different answers to that question, but that's sort of my diagnosis there. At the same time, then we saw MicroStrategy, and everyone was like, "Oh shoot, the ETFs are out. Like, MicroStrategy is dead, right?" MicroStrategy was sort of the ETF, the pseudo ETF, and so everyone was waiting for MicroStrategy to just collapse as soon as all the ETFs launched, and instead the opposite happened, and everyone was like, "Whoa, like, what's going on?" And Saylor had been coming out basically making this compelling case of, well, ETFs take a fee. Every year, every quarter, you have a little bit less Bitcoin than you had before. If you just hold your Bitcoin in an ETF. MicroStrategy will actually increase the number of Bitcoin you have per share of MicroStrategy you own. And we do it through this accretive dilution process. And so then there became this, I think, retail rush to MicroStrategy, because all of a sudden, everyone knew Saylor. He was already kind of a massive figure in the space. Now he has a compelling reason to not buy an ETF and instead buy his stock. And it happened, in the run up. His stock started exploding. That, created like a flywheel of more people buying the stock. And then that unlocked this narrative of like, oh, there should actually be a MicroStrategy in every market. And there's kind of unlimited demand for this right now. And there was. And so I don't think that that's necessarily wrong today, right? Like, I still think that there is a use case and a reason for there to be MicroStrategies in these different markets, because what is ultimately happening, and this picks to like kind of the third piece of picking apart the narrative, is that what Saylor is doing is a very Bitcoin maximalist approach. And he is going into every pool of capital he can find, and he is creating a product for that pool of capital that fits their investment thesis, that fits their ethos. And then he is using that product to gain more exposure to Bitcoin himself, right? Stretch is an easy example, obviously, because it's the main thing he's talking about. All he's going into there is he's disrupting the private credit markets. He's disrupting, the fixed income investors. And he's basically saying, look, you buy this fixed income, 11%, whatever it is, instrument. There's very little downside. It's capped on the upside, but you get this dividend, and I'm just going to go buy Bitcoin with it. And the reality is like that should be happening. If you're a Bitcoin maximalist, that should be happening everywhere. Every single pool of capital you can find, you should be creating the Bitcoin instrument that allows that pool of capital to go unlock more demand for Bitcoin. And so I think that that's going to, obviously that's gone through a hype and bust cycle over the past year, but I don't think that that is a fundamentally wrong thesis. I think that will come back in a really big way in the next bull run. It will probably be, orders of magnitude larger than it was this past bull run. And it's something that like right now everyone is enjoying dancing on the graves, right? Everyone's like, ha ha ha, look at all these treasury companies, look at how they failed. I think that's a very myopic and short-term thinking approach. I think what you're actually watching is the orange pilling of the global capital markets. And that is a necessary and important step along the path to hyper Bitcoinization. So that would be my like picked apart thesis so far. Anything I miss?
Well, no, I think that's
good.
tremendous insight, and yeah, really beautifully said. And this is something, I talk about all the time. It's like, I don't really understand why Bitcoiners have such a gripe with finance. And it's like, yes, it's, an infallible industry that's done a lot of dirty things. But if we want to achieve hyper Bitcoinization, like we need to build the tools, products, and strategies to get dollars into Bitcoin. Like Saylor, obviously, I think is really, leading that charge. You guys now part of Nakamoto deploying that. You have similar strategy. I would like to hear, how you're thinking about it on the Nakamoto side. So yeah, just two questions here. One, if you could just kind of take us like maybe behind the scenes what that acquisition was like, just as a professional, getting bought and acquired by, a public company. You guys obviously have a lot of different business segments, just like what that experience was like. And then two, uniquely, I think like, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Fold is the only other like public Bitcoin operating company that kind of comes to mind. So I think you guys are actually playing in a unique spot within like the subsect of the industry where you have a Bitcoin focused operating business. And, when I'm talking to folks, that's always been a lot of the skepticism where it's like, okay, yeah, I conceptually get like this high level finance strategy, but it's like purely a financial play. You guys are bringing kind of more of a classical, we operate a business and generate cash flow. I'd like buy some Bitcoin with it, to the industry. So why don't you kind of walk us through how you're thinking about those two things?
Yeah, absolutely. So first on the transaction, I mean, it was if you've never gone through an M&A deal before, I highly recommend that you never do. It's like it is the worst. Like you would have thought it would have been easy to get this thing closed. When we launched Nakamoto, the goal of Nakamoto was to take BTC Inc. public, right? Like that was in every investment thing, like every communication that was talked about. It was like BTC Inc. and UTXO are going to be kind of the operating companies of this public vehicle. And the only issue is that like we didn't have PCA would be financial audit, so we had to like do that. And we couldn't go public until that was completed. And it took, basically a year. So while we're doing that, we didn't want to just sit and wait for that to complete before we could go kind of get this public vehicle, try and do, the treasury play. And so we launched Nakamoto ahead of it. We kind of create this, option for Nakamoto to acquire BTC once the financials are audited. And then, finally they get audited and then we do the transaction kind of as stipulated. And so it sounds on its face like that wouldn't have been a very difficult thing to do, but I'm telling you, it was chaos. And in fact, like, because we tried to solve it all up front, all that meant is that like there were these just narrow levers that could be pulled in order to allow the transaction to complete as stipulated, when the price had fluctuated massively in both directions between when we kind of inked the deal and when it was time to close it. And so it was a very difficult process. And I never want to do it again. So like that's first and foremost. I'm BTC Inc. I don't have to worry about, future M&A really. But it was I understand I have a newfound sympathy for the investment bankers and the M&A people and the M&A lawyers. It's like, man, that takes a lot of patience, of diligent work, of T's and C's and everything in between. And yeah, it's tough. It's tough. So, without going back into like Vietnam in my head, we'll just set that aside and say, we're happy it's complete. We're excited to be part of Nakamoto. We're like, we believe that we have everything we need to build the best company in the world, frankly. And having Bitcoin as your savings tool as you're building a business is just a massive unlock. There's just no two ways about it. Like what else would you want to do with your treasury? Hold it in cash? Just buy back your stock and signal that you have no ideas of how to kind of grow your business beyond that. No, you want to own Bitcoin. Like you want to own hard money. You want to be able to leverage that into new investments you want to underwrite as a business, or products you want to launch, or M&A deals you may want to do in the future that I'm just not even going to try and play with, right? Like those are all paths you can have when you have hard money that grows over time. And so then the question on our end becomes like, well, what role do we have? The beauty of being a Bitcoin operating company is that your revenues and your size scales with Bitcoin. So this is like the difference between another company. If you're just, I don't know, software company XYZ, right? And you do a Bitcoin treasury play. At first you may have tons of profits that you're putting into Bitcoin, and it's great. But then when Bitcoin 10x's, all of a sudden your profits are kind of tiny compared to where Bitcoin is at now. And so you kind of diminish your ability to increase the Bitcoin treasury over time. Whereas if you're a Bitcoin company, usually your revenues, your profits, your size of your business is going to scale with Bitcoin. And so that allows you, especially in bull markets, to the upside, like that allows you to grow the treasury even more than like you otherwise would have been able to do as just a regular operating, public company. So, that's part of the idea of what we want to do is, and I mean, again, all of this is just publicly stated. Like we want to be a profitable business. We want to buy Bitcoin with the profits. We want to add those to the treasury. We want to grow the treasury over time. Like all of that is what we want to accomplish. And I think that that's just a fundamentally kind of new concept in the public market space. So, we're very excited to continue to run this. This isn't a 2-year trade, right? This is a business we've run our entire professional lives. We're going to continue to run our entire professional lives. And, we're in it for the long run. So I'm very bullish on where it's going to go. And, that's not to say that there hasn't been plenty of kind of challenges and heartburn and, just chaos with, managing a public company for the first time. And, David is really had to weather a storm of just criticism and all sorts of stuff, kind of around his crazy run up on the stock, and then the crazy kind of I don't know, pushing down of the stock price and moving down of the stock price. And so he's a first time public company CEO. Like you only learn that by trial by the fire, and
Yeah.
he's been learning it in real time. So the good news is, and I said this in the beginning, when I was talking about being an intern, and with our conference too, we're fast learners, right? We make mistakes. We don't make the same mistake twice. And so I'm very bullish on our ability to level up as we continue to operate, as we continue to grow. And like I said, I think we have the best company in the world. So I'm very bullish on kind of our future.
I love it. I think it's important to point out, I think a lot of people on the finance side are just, if they see that underlying operating business that is profitable, that is really, I think, all really that I want to see, right, is just how does this sustain? So I appreciate you speaking on that. This episode is brought to you by Satoshi Pacioli, a full-service accounting and tax firm built for the Bitcoin economy. If you run a Bitcoin business, mine Bitcoin, or invest in it, you need advisors who actually understand how this industry works. Satoshi Pacioli handles bookkeeping, financial reporting, tax compliance, and strategic planning for Bitcoin-focused companies and individuals. They speak the language of Bitcoiners and help you stay compliant while building for the long term. To learn more or book a consultation, visit satoshipacioli.com. If we could pivot like to a different topic but still stay on like dissecting narratives, the world I come from, right, is the tax world. And like we're in the heat of tax season, we're helping people with their cost basis and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just curious, one of the big narratives that I am seeing in my everyday work life is this medium of exchange. And then, of course, like I think it was yesterday, all of the Square terminals went online for Bitcoin payments. And then I know obviously you guys have gotten involved with politics to the degree that, it's helpful to bring people in, whether it's Lamas or Trump, to speak on Bitcoin and give it legitimacy. But when it comes to like the policy, the nitty gritty, I feel like we're kind of at this very pivotal point where, if history is a teacher of politics, the midterms are going to go, I think, a very specific way, right? Where Congress is going to flip back over and we're not going to have a path to get de minimis. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on what role you all see the event coming up playing in trying to get that across the finish line in the reconciliation, in a summer reconciliation bill, because it feels like that's kind of the only option that's on the table right now to get it done.
Yeah, really great question. And let me preface all of this by saying that I have no background in policy. I have no background in politics. Like everything, we've sort of stumbled our way into the position that we have found ourselves kind of since 2024. So there's a couple of things to pick on there. Number one is, this de minimis exemption. I agree. It's so important. And it's important for many reasons, but the most obvious being like, you can't buy a cup of coffee with Bitcoin if you have to track your, 3-cent capital gains, thing that you then are somehow going to be at fault for if you don't pay. It's like, it's just, it prevents Bitcoin from being its ultimate use case, which is money, right? And so we want to be able to allow for that. And what's interesting is as we have navigated that issue, there's a couple of challenges that have sort of emerged. So, man, like DC is a political machine. And so if you want to have a win, even if it's a common sense win, if one side is pushing for it, at this point, the other side is against it. And they're only against it maybe in spirit so that they can get a concession somewhere down the road. And they can say like, oh, look, we compromised here. So now you're going to compromise there. Even if it's a thing that like, why the heck are you compromising on this? You should be just for this, right? And specifically to the de minimis exemption for Bitcoin, you have this whole, I forget the name of it, but the sort of body that decides like the cost of certain line items of a bill, right? How does this affect the U.S. budget? And creating a de minimis exemption for Bitcoin is viewed by that body as actually it's net negative to the U.S. tax revenues. And so if you just take that away, then all of a sudden the bill becomes a cost to the U.S. taxpayer. And so the idea is, okay, you'd have to like now balance out this cost with some new revenue or, something. Otherwise, your bill is kind of labeled as, adding to the deficit, right? And so the actual narrative that we are having to battle right now in DC is that erasing the de minimis exemption on Bitcoin increases the U.S. deficit. Like if you don't pay your 3-cent tax on your cup of coffee, the U.S. deficit is going to explode and it's all your fault. So, like the irony of that is sweeter than could be, but we'll just set that aside. Like that is why it's not just the most obvious win here. And again, it's not to say that it won't happen, but it means that there's going to have to be a compromise that's struck in order for it to happen. And so that makes it really challenging for it to go in something like the Clarity Act, because the Clarity Act isn't really supposed to add to the deficit. It's like it's this sort of regulatory clarity bill, not necessarily a like funding or finance bill of the U.S. government. And so there's a little bit of interest in like separating the P's and Q's. I'm not saying this is right or wrong. I'm saying like that's kind of the field as I see it. And so then the question becomes like, can we get de minimis before the midterms? Like you said, maybe there's this reconciliation bill and summer, yada, yada. I think that obviously, someone like Lummis is going to be pushing really hard for this. I think she actually just introduced a brand new bill to try and get de minimis across before, the midterms. And my honest answer is like, I don't know whether it's going to be possible, if it's possible. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm saying that like, this is going to get into the inner workings of how DC operates. And, that is, I think, by design, the blackest of black boxes. And so what I'll say on the flip side is I know that the Trump administration would love to see a de minimis exemption. Like Trump wants to deliver for Bitcoiners, right? And so there's this tension between what does the legislature want to do and the kind of what I would call like the proverbial swamp, right? Like what do those people want to do versus like what does the administration want to do, and how does that get translated? And in that comes all sorts of competing interests. And I was actually talking about this on a show just the other day. But like, if I was going to criticize kind of how everything has gone down with the Trump administration so far, and again, this is not a critique of the Trump administration, this is a critique of us, is that Bitcoiners had no infrastructure in DC outside of like BPI and a couple of people. The entire infrastructure in DC was crypto. And so when something like a Trump administration comes in and they have kind of these things they can do within the administration, right, to support Bitcoin, to support the industry, they do those things, right? Like we got the SBR, we freed Ross, we did a lot of the things that Trump said he wanted to do that he could do from the executive branch. And then all the things that required the congressional action in order to make happen, that got filtered through the crypto apparatus of DC. And there are just competing interests there. And it's not like and this is where like, we were pulling our hair out a little bit. It's not like there's anything wrong with the interests that they have. There's nothing wrong with, a stablecoin bill. There's nothing wrong with, a Clarity Act and all these kind of things. We're not against these things happening, but it's the prioritization of them that I think was very short-sighted, because everyone could agree on a Bitcoin bill. Everyone could agree that, helping cement Bitcoin as like an important tool of the US and like a mainstay in our economy, like that is good. That is good for the whole industry, right? But, these people that are getting paid to advance policy initiatives on the stablecoin side, they were like, we got to get stablecoins done, like we got to do it. And they're the ones talking to the congressional leaders in the Senate every day. And so all of a sudden, in this translation of the administration prerogative to the sort of legislative agenda, stablecoins became the priority. And it's like, how did that happen? Well, it happened because the Bitcoiners weren't kind of guiding that conversation. It was Tether, it was USDC, it was Coinbase, right? It was those folks who were like, how do we kind of create wins for the entire industry? And then, the inevitability of both the stablecoin bill of the Genius Act and of the Clarity bill is that you had opposing sides within the industry itself. And what that meant is that you didn't have, like, it was a Pyrrhic victory to get both of those deals done. And you had all of Congress being like, wow, to get anything done for you guys is like pulling teeth. And everyone is having to compromise on one thing or the other, and you guys don't even have your own priorities set. You don't even know what you want out of this bill. Like you're bickering with each other, right? For stable coins, it's like the Tether versus USDC, right? And how easy is it for Tether to operate? How easy is it for USDC to operate? What's this yield thing? Athena, like all of these kind of different priorities of how a stablecoin works. All of that was fluttering around, and now you don't have like a clear path forward of how to just like easily make everything win for the stablecoin industry. And then you have the banks, and then now the banks are also upset, right? And so all these legislatures are right, like, oh, I thought this was going to be easy, and instead, like I'm sifting through a war that's been going on, as we know, for like years in the crypto space. And then the same thing happens with clarity between, the banks as well as the exchanges, the layer one protocols, the DeFi protocols. They all want something different out of this, right? And so then you run into the same issue where it's not an easy win for these guys to get this legislation across because the industry isn't all on the same page of what they want. And so then all of these compromises have to happen. Tons of political capital is spent. And by the end of it, the Congress is just like, okay, let's go focus on like our bread and butter issues over here. And let's move on. And so that's where ultimately Bitcoin has been, in my opinion, deprioritized and left by the wayside. And it is frustrating from my perspective for a lot of reasons. At the end of the day, like, it's all incentives. I don't fault anyone personally for it. I think everyone's trying to just like do the right thing for themselves. But it's not the ideal outcome, that's for sure. So, in sum, because I know I'm rambling here, but in sum, like, I think that will we see de minimis before the midterms? I don't know. Frankly, I really don't. I'd love to see it, but I just have a feeling that, we're not going to see the wins that we want until the back half of the administration, if it's even possible by that point.
That's really interesting, Brandon. No, I
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing that, man, because
No,
I didn't know that, or that helps me better kind of understand.
it's an impossible
the
situation,
BTC and the change.
honestly.
Yeah. And again, like, I don't fault anybody. Everyone's doing their jobs. Like, they're doing what they're supposed to do. And all of it is going to ultimately probably be good for the whole industry writ large in the end. Right. So it's not, I'm not like slamming my fists. I'm not saying anyone's a bad actor here or anything like that. I'm just saying that because of all of this prioritization of other stuff, I think Bitcoin has been deprioritized. And, I would have
guess,
loved
do
to
you
see kind
see-
of those wins happen first.
Do you see anything like with the megaphone that we have in a month that can try to, I guess, create a sense of urgency? I think I've always felt that with Bitcoiners, that they want to see something happen. They are disillusioned with the whole political process. And so they are just like, whatever, like, F it kind of thing. I'm just not even going to participate. But in order to bring this to the normie class, right, of Americans, and have people have the ability to spend Bitcoin at a local cafe using a Square terminal, I think that tax burden, the cost basis burden for the person who's like, I just don't want to go to jail. Bitcoin seems interesting to me, but I'm not going to track all this stuff. It's just too much. Or the business owner on the other side is like, I'm not going to accept Bitcoin, or I'm going to convert it immediately to cash because I don't want to track cost basis for when we need to sell to cover our payroll. I guess that's my main question is like the megaphone. Is there anything specific that you think that we might be able to do within a month to try to get that across the finish line, create that urgency?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're obviously going to have conversations around it at the conference. So, I'm hopeful we can help move the needle. But I don't know, it's like sometimes you can create a crazy shelling point around, something like a Trump coming to speak. And, I believe that sort of changed the course of our whole industry's history, right? But it's a little bit like, it's art more than science, right? And at the end of the day, like, everything has to come together in the right way in order for you to be able to leverage that platform to make that kind of impact and change. And yeah, I just, it's an interesting moment in time. Like, all of this goes back to what I prefaced. Like, I'm not a policy expert. So I couldn't tell you if I could map out like if we get this to happen, then this will happen, which will cause this to happen, which will cause, de minimis to get passed. Then I would have already, we would have already cooked that up, and that would already be, in flight. We would have done that last year. But the reality is like, it is a black box, and all we can do is shed as much light as possible on the issue. Be as clear as possible as a community of what we want to see, and then vote for the people that enact the things that we want to see. Like, we have like one lever here. It's like the people that aren't doing this, they need to leave. The people that are doing this, they need to stay. And that's like our best kind of leverage that we have on the system. And it's strong leverage. It's worked, pretty well generally so far. But in order for us to be able to, if we were going to fix the issue that I highlighted at the beginning, which is this prioritization process, that is going to require an apparatus, many apparati in DC interfacing with these politicians, not just like a BPI, that's it's an education, it's a 501c3. They're not lobbyists. I'm talking like we need lobbyists, we need PAC money, we need like all of this kind of stuff.
Wyatt's always wanted to be a lobbyist, so we should.
Hey, there you go. Hard to do that from Denver, but yeah, that's what we would need in order to actually compete with the existing infrastructure that's already out there. And the reality is, and again, I don't want this to come off as me like throwing sand in anyone's eyes or anything like that, but when you have the sort of VC apparatus that has existed around crypto, when you have the token, issuance and selling on retail that, creates this free money for these different protocols, et cetera, there's just a lot of money in that part of the industry. And there's not that level of funding and financing of the Bitcoiners because, we have to kind of build it authentically from scratch, and it's a little less sexy and it's a little more work. And you don't really just have the massive multi-million-dollar policy budget to go through around. So it's just going to come with time. That's the best I can say is the difference between us and them is like our power only grows with time. Our influence only grows with time. We have a stable foundation that we're growing on. That's the whole point of Bitcoin. And so at some point we're going to get to minimis. At some point we're going to, ensure that the strategic reserve is enshrined in law. At some point we're going to get everything we want. At some point the president will be just one of us Bitcoiners, who's like, whose turn is it to kind of run the country, right? Like that's where we're all headed eventually. But we just got to lower our time preference a little bit, I think, on when it's all going to come together.
Yeah, that's beautifully said, Brandon. I haven't gotten a great question yet, so I know we're almost at time. So I'm going to ask one more.
Yeah, I knew why I was going to bring that up. I knew he was going to bring it. We're so competitive.
Every time I was like, I don't even think these are that good questions.
I think all the questions have been great, by the way, and I apologize for rambling. So, you get what you get with me.
I appreciated it, Brandon. I knew it was going to rub him.
No, they were phenomenal answers. But maybe just to end on a more optimistic note here, and you can keep this as brief as you like, or as long as you like to. I've been really impressed with you guys at BTC and kind of branching out into different things within the Bitcoin ecosystem. Starting with the magazine, moving events, adding Bitcoin for corporations, like all these things. What opportunities do you think in Bitcoin that are still like untapped? Like if you had to start over from scratch, put your entrepreneur hat on, like where are you starting?
Yeah, great question.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I would also just preface this by saying, like, let's set the whole AI thing to the side for now, because I think that that's like, the craziest part of building a company right now is that you have a truly just like outsized force coming in from left field, and in the way that like AI is just disrupting everything. That it, a lot of business models, a lot of ways by which people would build businesses in the past have just been totally upended. And it also creates like massive opportunity. Anyone can go build a company right now and leverage these tools. But on the flip side, anyone can go build a company right now and leverage these tools, right? So it's like competition is going to be fierce. There's going to be a lot of new companies coming on, and the best will succeed. But where I see in Bitcoin right now, it's the narrative that I was kind of spinning a second ago, which is the Bitcoin maximalist point of view is to create a Bitcoin product or service in every pool of capital in the world. And like we are just barely scratching the surface of the different pools of capital that could be buying Bitcoin. Like I would say right now we've got sort of public equities and most massive public capital markets at this point. And that's it. And then we have, the fixed income in the US. And so, building a fixed income product for, any of these other public markets, I think would be a great place to start. I think the bit bond, whenever it comes to fruition, will be probably another order of magnitude unlock from what Stretch looks like right now, maybe a couple orders of magnitude. Municipal bonds, I think it's like it's hard to even. I'm not a expert on all of these different pools of capital, right? It's hard to even like just walk you through every single thing that's going to be disrupted by sort of a Bitcoin product coming to market. So, but yeah, I imagine that in the end, we will get to a point where every dollar that you deploy, someone on the other side will at least be using a part of that to buy Bitcoin. And so if you see a place right now where dollars are being deployed in mass and no one's buying Bitcoin on the other side of it, then I think that's an opportunity for you to go build product. And apply that everywhere, man. I mean, to the point of the operating companies even, if you see a company that builds MRI machines and, they're basically taking basic parts, they're turning it into MRI machine, they're selling it for a massive premium, they're collecting a big bag on the back end, because it's just this complex thing that's hard to build, and then they're sticking that in cash. Well, if you went and built an MRI machine, or you just bought that company and put all the cash in Bitcoin, like that is a better product. That is a better company than the one that just buys cash with it. So even like this whole, I don't know, I hate to use the term like PE, like private equity, but a private equity model where instead you are just taking cash flowing businesses and pointing the cash flow into Bitcoin, that will drive dividends. That will be one of the most profitable companies, pools of capital out there, is if you can just activist turn fiat companies into Bitcoin companies. So, yeah, that would be like my wide ranging answer to that question. It's hard to pin down like a specific example of like this company doesn't exist right now, but it should. I also think like insurance is a big opportunity. Both from like D&O and custody and, some of these things that just everyone's going to need more and more of as we go. But also finding ways to just leverage Bitcoin in the insurance model is I think going to be a massive unlock. So yeah, maybe that would be like, I guess, my singular answer to that question, if I were to take one.
Yeah, it's a great one. I love it.
Yeah. Brandon, thank you so much for coming on. We want to make sure we're respectful of your time.
Yeah, okay, sorry so I went over. I know we were saying this is going to be like a 45-minute convo. Yeah.
No, it's all good. All right. So if someone for some reason is not already planning to come to Vegas, how do they find out how to buy a ticket, get accommodations, all that stuff?
Yeah, just go to 2026.b.tc. That's our conference website. You'll see all the information there. You can get your tickets there. You can get your hotel there. It's coming up soon, so you'll want to book now. I think our prices are increasing this week too. So definitely don't wait around. And yeah, all I'll say is, the bear market events. I kind of said this in the beginning. The bear market events is where the magic happens. Like this, if you want to work in the space. If you get a job in the space in the bull market, there's a decent chance your job goes away in the bear market. If you get a job in the space in the bear market, there's a decent chance that by the bull market, you're going to have a massive team under you. You're going to have, huge responsibility. You will have already leveled up in the company multiple times because the grind is on right now and the great people get hired. And then those people have massive latitude to do big things in the organizations. Similarly, the companies that get funded in the bear market, like those are companies that will grow massively in the bull market because they're not constrained by capital in the same way that, other bear market companies might be. So if you're looking to start a company, if you're looking to launch a company, this is the best time to do it. This is the best time to go find your co-founder. If you're looking to get funding for your company, this is the best time to go pitch investors. They're not getting flooded by a whole bunch of, random projects that just launched yesterday, like they're looking for quality. If you are feeling down on your Bitcoin stack because it's drawn down 50% from all-time highs, this is a great time to just like go hang out with other Bitcoiners that are in the exact same position as you. It's like the ego's gone, everyone's humbled. You're in the bear market. You can just go enjoy your time with other people, with other Bitcoiners who have gone through the same cycle, the same ups, the same downs as you have, and they have the same outlook on it as you. And there's a camaraderie that's built there. There's a feeling, a deeper understanding of what Bitcoin is for. It's a great feeling. And again, the guards aren't up, the veils aren't up, and you really just get to have an authentic interaction with people. These bear market events, I mean, it's where all the magic happens. And then the last thing I'll say to the broader point on narratives, for us, these bear market events is where the narratives for the bull market form. And so we are very in tune with the programming that happens at these events, more than any other event, because we know that like what resonates here, what is said here, what is built during this time, like that is the foundation by which Bitcoin is going to have its next leg up, its next growth cycle. And so we have to really be paying attention to them. And if you manage to pay attention to them yourself, like you can be that much further ahead of the curve in the upcoming bull market. So for all those reasons and more, if you haven't gotten your ticket, this is the event to go to. It's going to be a fantastic event. I'm going to be there. Y'all are going to be there. It's going to be a great time. Vegas is fun, and we'd love to see you there.
I love it. I'll be there. So, and I'm first year corporate sponsor. We got a booth, and so very excited.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the support.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have the best companies in the world, frankly, are our sponsors. So, it's seeing all these amazing companies come in every year. It just makes me that much more bullish on Bitcoin. These are the top people building the space. Bitcoin is only as good as the people that use it, right? And so being able to highlight and being able to work with the top entrepreneurs, the top people in the space, it just makes you that much more bullish on Bitcoin because you get to just see what people are building. So, I appreciate your support, and Wyatt, appreciate your support too. And it's going to be a great year. It's going to be a great year.
Awesome.
Well,
Anything
thanks
else
so much
on your
for
side,
coming
Wyatt?
on,
Brandon? No, this was amazing. I really enjoyed it. I appreciate your time.
Likewise.
Cool.
Thank you guys for having me, and thank you for letting me ramble for a little while. If you
No,
just
you're
got to
good.
go in and cut up some of the rambles and make them shorter, feel free. But yeah, thanks guys.
All good. All right. We'll see you in about 30 days. Thanks,
Sounds
Brandon.
good. See you soon.
All right.
We appreciate you joining us. If you want to help build the future of Bitcoin and financial services, hit subscribe, leave a review, and most importantly, share this with someone in your network who's integrating Bitcoin into their practice. The more professionals we reach, the stronger the ecosystem becomes, and our clients are better served. Stay sharp, stay sovereign, keep leading from the front.